O Inicio, the beginning. An aptly named track because it was the first composition that I wrote for the first ever session we put together in Londrina in February 2019. And I wrote this track about a month before in January. And this was the first session that Alex, my friend, put together in his studio in Londrina. And we got some local guys in, some local session musicians to record. Diogo Burka, Thiago Ueda, Roger Alessio. And the rest is history, obviously, because from that first session, that's what gave me the idea to actually carry on and record a full album with the same guys. So the idea for this composition, I wanted to go into the first ever session with the guys with some really Brazilian inspired jazz fusion, and have some really sort of, a good chart for them to follow and some strong ideas. So the idea for this tune came from two sources, really. The first thing, I was listening a lot to a track called Partido Alto by Hector Moreira, very famous Brazilian musician. And I loved the groove of this track, and it's based, as the title of the track suggests, on a Partido Alto groove. And the idea of Partido Alto is from samba, and it's in this case a very definite groove. And I'll try and, it's like the groove is kind of like this. Ba 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 ba. And what I loved about the feel of this groove is it starts syncopated, and it's great because the one isn't there, and it's one of those lovely Latin grooves that really kind of teases you about where the one is, and I love that kind of thing. And the idea of a Partido Alto is, as opposed to a samba tune, the instruments, most of the instruments copy that groove and kind of really emphasize that one groove rather than a polyrhythmic sort of idea with lots of different grooves. And if you listen to O Inicio, that groove is very strong. The keys, the bass, at times are very strictly accentuating that groove, and even the guitar at times as well, particularly when you hear the drum solo come in. All the bass, the guitar and the keys are all really accentuating that Partido Alto. So yeah, for me it was that was the way I wrote the tune. It was the groove first, and I was also listening a lot. I mean, I've always loved Herbie Hancock, and Maiden Voyage is one of my favourite tunes of his. And I guess I must have had, a Maiden Voyage in the back of my head as well when I wrote this, because, some of the harmonic movement is fairly similar to Maiden Voyage and the feel and everything. So yeah, those were the two major influences when I wrote this tune. And I just wanted, a nice singable, strong melody that worked over the Partido Alto groove, and I wanted it very anthemy. And you may ask why I put a tune called The Beginning, O Inicio, at the end of an album. Well, it wasn't done for any sense of irony or any sort of humorous reasons. I put the track at the end literally because I really wanted it to be the last track. It for me it was the last track. There was no difficult decisions to make, and I think the reason why I love it so much as the last track is because it's a pretty long track. It's 10 minutes long, and it's pretty epic. And it's kind of, I guess, palindromic in its structure. You've got this very loose kind of jam feel to bring in before the main theme comes in, and and the main theme comes back at the end, and again, then it goes out into a kind of almost like a breakdown. All the instruments are kind of just freestyling it, and it really, really just sort of gently fades out, and I thought that was a really nice ending. When I listened to the track, it left me feeling very invigorated, like it had taken me on a journey, and the way it left me when the final kind of ringing out of the cymbals and the bass harmonics and stuff, it just left me with a really warm, lovely feeling, and I thought that's how I want people to feel when the album finishes. So yeah, it wasn't a sense of irony the reason I put the beginning at the end, but then I went on to think, well, actually, it kind of, I kind of like the fact that I've got a track called O Inicio, the beginning at the end, because it's sort of the beginning of my solo album career, and the beginning of perhaps the next movement in the chapter, the next album, which leads me on to sort of move on to the next album, really, because from London to Little London, this is the last track on the album and the final track discussion. So basically, I hope you enjoyed me discussing how all the tunes came about, and maybe by knowing a little more about the history of each track, it sort of being able to makes you be able to listen to it at a deeper level, understanding what the idea was, and also obviously for anybody less familiar with Brazilian music, I hope that the track discussions have explained the idea of certain Brazilian grooves and the history of them, and how they heavily influenced me in the writing and recording of this album. So that leads me really to conclude from London to Little London, and the wonderful experience it was writing and recording it. And as I say, O Inicio, the beginning of new things. And very soon I will be releasing first single from my next album. And that first single is going to be called Hope, and it's again very aptly titled. I wrote it in Londrina when we were stuck in Brazil because of the pandemic, and it's a tune of hope. It's a track of hope that we can have brighter days ahead of us, and really come out of this pandemic. Move on. So look out for that. That's going to be released really soon, and thank you for all your support and for listening to From London to Little London, and listening to my musings about each track. And the links to O Inicio, as usual, are in the information above, and if you haven't listened to it, go and give it a listen. It's a good epic tune, and I hope you enjoy it.